Three wet strangers, one podcast. Who will be left alive at the end of this week's episode of the rainiest podcast in the world, the Pod People? I'm Matisse Van Rossum, and I just want to go home and grow oranges.
I'm the Rain Man, Ben Sheets.
When I was going up the stairs, I met a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. I wish he wasn't gay. I'm Cleveland Mosher.
Are you talking about the man in the mirror?
The gay man in the mirror, yeah.
Gay man in the mirror that you look at every day?
Every day.
Well, welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Good to be here with you boys. We're doing another Patreon pick this week. The film we're talking about was chosen by our honorary pod boy, Zach, who tends to come at us with some pretty out-of-the-cut picks that usually shit that none of us have seen. And that holds true for this one today. We're talking about a film from 2003 called Identity, directed by James Mangold. It was the film he did right before Walk the Line. And folks now probably know him for stuff like Logan. He just did the Timothée Chalamet Bob Dylan biopic that was all at the Oscars and shit. And he did some stuff before this, so this isn't his first film, but is kind of a murder mystery whodunit with a twist. I was reading sort of I don't think it can really be considered an adaptation, but like inspired by Agatha Christie's story, and then there were none.
Very heavily inspired.
Yeah, similar premise, isolated location, 10 strangers. One of them is a killer, killing off all of these people one by one. Who is the killer?
And also, it gets like just outright referenced in the middle of them being "and then there were none." One of the characters says, "This sure is like "and then there were none," isn't it?"
Yeah.
Which I like.
Subtle flick is not.
Is not. Fun? It is.
Fun, yeah. I wouldn't consider this a particularly smart movie. I wouldn't consider this a particularly well-written movie. And I was actually looking into why that is, and there's a good reason for it. This this film was written by a dude named Michael Cooney, who you've probably never heard of, but you've probably heard of at least one of the films he's written, Jack Frost, and its sequel. You know the
yeah, of course,
from the 90s with the holographic
horrifying
cover.
children in Blockbuster everywhere, me amongst. Absolutely, I remember like at Blockbuster going, like you walk down the hall and it's like, oh, snowman, and it's scary, like, and you're a kid, and it freaks you out. Yeah, I actually watched Jack Frost fairly recently.
I've not seen it. I have seen the episode of Best of the Worst where they talk about it, the RLM video, and it looks atrocious.
It is. It's pretty funny. It's got some subject matter issues. I'll leave it at that. Yeah, none of which is in this movie, at least.
No, but it was written by the same person.
That's interesting. I wouldn't hold Jack Frost against anybody, only because like the type of movie that is so different. I don't think it's like you're not gonna get like a fair sample of that author's work out of Jack Frost. Like if I was asked to write a Jack Frost, I wouldn't want that work to be held up against whatever else I've done.
No, well, I mean, the only reason I bring that up is because I didn't recognize literally anything else he's ever written. So
I'm glad you brought it up. That is fascinating. How about that? Huh. Yeah, this movie was made in 2003.
It sure was.
Very clearly, yes. Very 2003 editing style, I will say.
Yeah.
Very 2003 aesthetic, very 2003 cast as well. Surprisingly stacked cast.
Good cast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like great cast.
For the most part, there's some weak links for sure, but I mean, like the main guy is you got John Cusack, Ray Liotta is in there, Alfred Molina he's He's got a pretty small part, all things considered. I guess important by the end, but and you've got like John C. McGinley. I feel like this was like peak Scrubs era, or like maybe early Scrubs era. I can't actually remember when Scrubs was a thing.
2003, I think, is pre-Scrubs.
Maybe around, yeah, it might be actually. This might be pre
Scrubs is
Scrubs.
like 2005, isn't it? Like, I don't know. I could be wrong.
Couldn't tell you. I haven't watched Scrubs since probably 2008.
Yeah.
But it's got Jake Busey as well.
Yeah, being a little freak is the Buseys are great at.
Showing
I
those
love a
I
Busey.
mean,
I did a little clap when he came out of the car, and I was like, I know a Busey when I see a Busey. Like, I'm so
yeah,
excited.
I can spot those teeth from a mile away.
Mile away, and those crazy eyes. Like,
Yeah.
all the Buseys rule.
yeah. Well, I mean, Jake Busey playing the role that he was born to play, a weird, nasty freak.
A lot of I mean, like this movie, it's really just rife with character actors.
Mhm.
Yes.
And they all get to play characters, so it works great.
Yeah.
Like,
A lot of whom are like haven't been in anything since like 2003 pretty much. um
how they
but
work rules.
yeah, you know, it is what it is. Like I don't feel like I've seen Amanda Peet in anything since this, or what's her face, I always forget her name, Clea Duvall. Those are people that I like
Great.
recognize, but I haven't seen in anything in such a long time.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I see John Hawkes from time to time. I feel like Pruitt Taylor Vince is in tons of stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
Yeah,
great
Pruitt
like
Taylor
character
Vince was
actor.
good. John Hawkes was fun to see. I mean, mostly just because I've watched Deadwood recently. But I think like he is still in stuff. He was in the last season of True Detective, the really bad one,
yeah.
with Jodie Foster. He looks crazy in that. For only thing I've ever seen him in where he doesn't have facial hair, so it just looks like a, I don't know, like a naked rat. It's uncanny, but I did enjoy seeing him in this. I think Deadwood also started in 2003, didn't it? That ran 03 to 06,
Oh shit! I
I
think
want
you
to
might be
say.
right. Yeah, I'd have to check, but yeah, around that time.
So this is right around the time Deadwood started. But yeah, Pruitt Taylor Vince also very sort of small part. He sort of comes in much later.
He kinda
Anyway,
steals the show, though, I will say.
Small part, but big feature. I'll say.
yes, yeah, he's an important character. Yeah,
Too, like, and I would also say well acted.
Yeah, he kinda steals the show once he's introduced, but we'll
Mhm.
get into his part later, I'm
yeah,
sure.
yeah. And you know, I'd say in general, like the level of talent in this cast is a pretty broad gamut, but nobody is bad in this, I don't
Not
think.
at all.
I think John C. McGinley's performance is weird, but I don't think I think that's more the direction than anything else. Like the weird sort of like autistic like stepfather that he's
Oh,
playing.
yeah, Autism Dad. I liked that. I thought it
Autism
was fun.
dad.
I didn't think it was realistic, but I thought it was very fun. Like,
Yeah,
that's all
well,
I need.
that's what I said. It's not like a bad performance. It's just a
Mhm,
weird
mhm.
performance.
No, it's well said too.
Sort of not what I'm used to seeing from him. You know, I'm used to the more like sort of swaggering, like braggadocio that you get from like Scrubs, I guess. And did you ever see the Belko Experiment from a few years ago? He's pretty good in that. I just rewatched that
Good actor.
recently. Solid
Um,
movie.
yeah, in terms of while we're just hitting like the how 2003 it is, I do want to note there's one aspect of it that I was very pleasantly surprised by, and that was the
The
color grading.
misogyny?
Well, that too, as you know, as everyone knows, I notoriously hate women. But the color grading was amazing. I really love like those like they're deep greens, but almost all of it was like in scene lighting, and it was always paired with like those nice oranges. So like there was actual like color contrast in the scenes that kind of just gave it this sort of fantastic look.
Honestly, this is like I feel like this movie squeaked in under the radar just before Saw came out and changed the aesthetic of American films for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
This does still, like, despite being like an early 2000s movie, it looks, and in a lot of ways reminds me more of like a late 90s film. I mean,
Yeah.
you're really only, it's kind of dickering around. You're only talking about a period of like 5, 6 years, but
Style did
yeah,
change pretty significantly in that time.
Having Mangold as the director, like, he brings in sort of a basic understanding of how to shoot scenes to the point where, it's not overly monochromatic,
yeah.
and compositions aren't particularly ugly or anything. Like, it looks decent throughout.
That's the thing about Mangold. I think he's kind of comparable to like Soderbergh, like we've talked about on the Presence episode, and like you and I were talking. We saw Black Bag, which was very good.
Amazing
Um,
movie.
yeah, one of my favorites of the year so far, honestly. But I consider Mangold a similar kind of like journeyman director who doesn't necessarily have like a like singular sense of style or aesthetic. Like I wouldn't consider him an auteur, but regardless of how the movie that he's making turns out, it's at least well directed. Like Soderbergh. I definitely don't love everything of James Mangold's that I've ever seen. But like, yeah, I mean, it's feels trite to say, but it feels like a real movie.
Yeah.
While we're on that topic, in addition, another thing I did love about the look of this film was that motel set. I thought it was sick,
Yeah.
really well constructed. I buy it like just enough where it feels tangible. I think the style of it still being like a very like for as drab and mundane as like the setting of the set is, I felt like it had this sort of artificial, fantastic quality to it. That reminded me of like certain like 2000s video games as well, or like The Ring even, and I mean the Japanese one, like there's just a couple of shots in particular, like when the my favorite shot in the movie is the actress is she's going out in the rain and she's trying to get her cell phone signal, and there's a shot like between two of the buildings looking out during the storm, and like the water is flooding through and coming off the rooftops and pipes, and she kind of crosses the threshold, and it just, I don't know, I just really liked the look of it. Like it felt haunted. I think the lighting and interplay like was really beneficial. You could tell that they were considering like the water like in the lighting as well, and it looked great in scene. I really appreciated it.
I was actually reading that they shot most of this movie in sort of one of the biggest and oldest like sound stages in Hollywood. It's like the same one where they built the Emerald City from Wizard of Oz.
Oh shit.
So it's been
That's pretty
around for
fitting.
like forever. So it's they literally built that entire
Yeah.
motel set on a huge sound stage.
I
So
think
that
it really pays off because being able to build out the whole thing allows you to have way more of a sense of geography to it all,
Mhm.
rather than having to piecemeal section out every bit. Like, you really have an idea of where the characters are and where things are taking place and, like, their movements between rooms and sections of the motel.
Yeah, it feels good.
having all of the level of control in terms of like lighting and like how and where you can move the camera and all of that stuff that like shooting on a sound stage like gives you. But I mean, it's convincing. The whole film essentially takes place like over the course of one night during like a terrible rainstorm, so it's dark and it's extremely wet.
The
um
rain, I think, is the secret juice to the style of this movie.
Yeah.
Like, this movie looks pretty good to me, mostly because how wet it is. Like, it is constantly raining, and, soundstage rain where, like, they can really amp it up and make it really heavy rain always, which
well
is
and,
nice.
and And you know why I think that that's so attractive to us is that Hollywood these days is scared to make movies wet. We're in one of the driest eras of cinema history that
First out here.
yeah, that is just like movies aren't wet, man. Like you don't have like big rain machine like scenes like this. Actors are never sweaty anymore. You don't just have two glistening beefcakes beating the shit out of each other, like everybody's too afraid to make things wet. And so like when you see a movie like this, which is maybe one of the wettest movies ever made, that it's just like, yeah, man, this harkens back to a time when they weren't fucking cowards. I really appreciated that. I really appreciated that too.
Yeah.
I would be legitimately curious to know how many thousands of gallons of water they used during the course of shooting this entire film, because it's literally raining for the entire film. And even when they're like inside, it's still going outside. Like I'm sure they have the rain machine like going on in sections. Like I'm sure they're
Yeah.
not continually drenching the entire soundstage. But even so, like how much water did they use for this? Anyway.
It always goes like heavy enough to wash out the background too. Like you
Yeah.
can often only see like a building or so away before things just disappear into like the mist. And just that heavy wall of water. Yeah, God, I gotta say the look of this movie, man, it looks good.
Yeah, and they also do lots of your sort of classic old Hollywood like thunder and lightning. It really adds to the kind of Agatha Christie vibes of this. Real dark and stormy night kind of shit.
We can start going through the plot a little bit. Like T's framed up, it's a series of characters that get stuck at this motel during a terrible rainstorm. Some of those intro scenes to the characters and their situations, where how they get to the motel, are pretty fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Before we touch on any of them, I just want to say like that I would recommend this movie, and the less you know about it, the better. That's always the case, but with this, even the setup of this movie, I would personally much rather just have it presented to me by the film, because there's just so many kind of unexpected moments that pop right from the beginning that I would go in without, and I would recommend it. It's a treat.
Sure, it's sort
Yeah,
of a whodunit puzzle box, so you don't really want to know all the pieces right away. That's totally fair. Honestly, for me, this, in a way, it feels like the perfect plane movie to watch on an airplane, because like the stakes aren't too high, and it moves at a nice enough clip to keep you engaged throughout. So
yeah. I think the movie is exactly 90 minutes. Yeah, it's exactly 90 minutes. So economy of filmmaking, economy of storytelling.
Enemy seating on a plane.
I really, yeah, economy seating on a plane. Yeah, way to bring it back around. And I do appreciate it because for how sort of like twisty and turny this movie is, it's tight enough that it doesn't feel like it ever gets too convoluted. I do think that like one of the like third act twists is pretty stupid, but we'll get we'll get to that later.
Did you
Um,
guys call it?
I did,
I
yes.
did too. Yeah. I was about to go
I
with
had
people,
to
so I have record. But
I
yeah.
had to no, I did the same thing. I had to say it out loud early on so Ben could vouch that I did indeed
yeah.
call it pretty early on. So yeah, we could talk a little bit about the characters and how they're all sort of brought into this motel out in the middle of the fucking desert in Nevada somewhere. So very isolated, I think. And then There Were None takes place on an island, doesn't
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
Like this, so very similar. This might as well be an island. And I think the first character we meet is Amanda Pete. We see that she was like a prostitute or something and like stole a bunch of money from a dude that she had handcuffed. Sort of dominatrix thing, is like trying to get away, but as she's driving, she runs over a woman's high heel in the middle of the road and gets like uh
No,
or no, that's
no. I got you. So first off, a very important detail that missed. When she's dominatrixing the tubby dude in the bed, it's his birthday, and he has a ton of whipped cream and sprinkles with a candle like on his tumpas, and it's very funny. And then yeah, she drives off with the money.
That's right. Yeah, she's going into her suitcase to get her cigarette lighter. She's in a convertible, and the lid flies open, and a bunch of her clothes and one of her shoes flies out onto the road, and it gets run over by John C. McGinley and his wife and their son are like on a road trip or something in their minivan. And so they get a flat tire. John C. McGinley is trying to fix the flat tire in the rain.
I love that like as soon as the tire blows, like John C. McGinley like word for word recites like the driver's instruction manual on how to pull over when you have a flat tire. It's great. Like
Yeah.
again, like it just immediate characterization. He is like he's autism dad and it rules. Like he pulls up over like on the side of the road. He stayed cool, calm, and collected, and he stuck to the manual on it, and it worked. So it's a lot of fun. Like right off the bat, each of these characters is given like heavy character. They're kind of larger than life.
So John C. McGinley is changing the tire. The rain has started at this point. The sun has gone down and the rain has started. And his wife is like outside the car, like holding an umbrella for him while he's changing the tire. And another car comes flying along and runs her over. And in that car is John Cusack, who's like a limo driver, and he's driving some famous actress or something to Hollywood or wherever she's going, whatever. They pull over and they're, he's trying to help John C. McGinley's wife, and they get her in the car and they're trying to go to a hospital, but basically both sides of the road are flooded, so they can't. And in the middle, there's a motel. So they stop at the motel, and there we're introduced to John Hawk's character, who is like the manager or the owner of the motel or whatever. And for some reason, he immediately clocks Amanda Peet as a prostitute, even though I don't feel like she's wearing like particularly like scant clothing or anything like that. But he immediately clocks her as a prostitute, and he really hates prostitutes for some reason. It's like a thing throughout the rest of the movie, which I feel like is funny because in Deadwood, he plays a guy who's in love with a prostitute.
Yeah, it seems like his character here really has some baggage to unpack about his feelings because he is just terribly misogynistic
Yeah, no
for
kidding.
no real reason.
And it's not even like he's like generally misogynistic. It's specifically directed at Amanda Peet.
Yeah.
He doesn't turn that towards any of the other women who show up. It's like just directed at her because she's like a dirty slut. Um, it's very weird. But so John Cusack tries to go back out to I think this is before they know that one of the roads is flooded or whatever. He's going to go to the nearby, quote unquote, nearby hospital 30 miles away and get help. And Amanda Peet goes with him, and they get like the car gets like stuck when they try to cross the. Is that right? Because then the
Yeah,
other
and then
couple.
they just abandon the car.
Well, so what it
in the
is,
Yeah.
like
puddle.
it's set up in dialogue. I think fine. It's kind of silly, but like but when they're coming up on it, she says it's washed out. We're not going to be able to get through. And John Cusack says, I have to try. He wants to, like barrel through however he can, and he immediately barrels into the water, and the car is stuck.
Yeah, he's like,
But
"Fuck it, it's not my car. Let's go. Let's
yeah.
ball."
Well, again, like he's a moral man. Like he's going to do whatever is right at his own expense. As he's set
He,
up to do
he
immediately.
he breaks before that he breaks the window too because he's trying to help the family and like the woman that he's just hit with his car, and the actress is like, she's like rolling up the window, she's like, no, 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 he's like, give me your cell phone, I need your cell phone. And so he just like smashes the window and like reaches, he's like, give me your fucking phone. So yeah, they just abandon the car because another car pulls up with another young couple. It's Clea Duvall and William Lee Scott. And so they're like, the road back the other way is flooded too, so we can't do anything, so let's all just go back to the motel. And they're all sort of like getting into their own rooms, and then last, a car pulls up, a police car, and Ray Liotta gets out, and he's like a cop who's transporting a dangerous convict played by Jake Busey, who's in the back seat. But it's like, well, he can't, the roads are flooded, so he's stuck here too. So we've got our setup. We've got all these characters, and they're like your little desert island, and there is a psycho killer handcuffed to the toilet in yeah, exactly, in handcuffed to the toilet in one of the rooms. And oh my god, people start dying right about the time that they notice that Jake Busey has escaped. Can you believe it? Dun dun dun.
The thing I like about this ensemble is like it's always a challenge when you have so many characters, making them distinct without any single voice overpowering the others too much. And I think they do a pretty good job here. Like they're all caricatures, and some are obviously more interesting than others. But it feels like all of them have kind of interesting development to an extent.
And I think that the most interesting characters are also given the most screen time, and that helps
Yes.
a lot. The least interesting of the set, in my opinion, is the Vegas couple. They are by far the least featured in the film. Not to the fault of the actors. I think that that character is supposed to be that, and little more. They're that dramatic couple on the side that are just sort of having their little row, and it has little to do
Yeah.
with the rest of the circumstances.
When also with the premise, yeah, they're being killed off one by one. So obviously, the characters who die off earlier are not going to have as much time for character development. You have to more firmly establish your protagonists, the ones who you kind of know are going to be around at the end, which in this case is obviously John Cusack, Amanda Peet, and Ray Liotta.
Yep.
You kind of establish themselves. I mean, Ray Liotta is kind of one of those ones like up in the air where it's like he could be around until the end, or he could also like be sort of like a surprise early death, is like somebody you're not necessarily expecting to get killed off. He does stick around for pretty much the whole movie though. But yeah, the actress is the first one who gets killed, and she's the flattest character. Her one note is bitch. So so we're not exactly upset to see her killed and have her head put into the washing machine, which is pretty fun.
If anything, we're
Love
delighted. Yeah, I really like her, and right before that sequence, we get this really delightful montage for the passage of time where we just briefly check in on each of the characters and what they're doing. And some are hiding money, some are revealing that they have money. And my favorite little note is we see Ray Liotta alone in a separate bathroom to the killer. Put his assumedly put his jacket back over his shirt, and we see that there's a hole. There's a wound hole in the back of the shirt, and it's covered in blood, but his back isn't. And implying that maybe he's not a cop, maybe he killed the cop or something. We don't
He's
know.
yeah,
I
he's
like that
not
detail.
who he says he
He
is.
is,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's a nice touch, and it leads us to further questions when it is revealed the killer is gone. Did he let him go? Did Larry let him go? We don't know. we find out, but it works nicely. There's just enough suspicion across the board. I even found John Cusack to be like almost too kind at times, or I thought that was possibly a red herring, that maybe he's really the worst of them all. It would be very 2000s to do that.
The seeming hero turns out to be the killer. Yeah.
Mhm. I also like how it happens much faster than it does in Alien, but we mentioned on the Alien episode, I'm a big fan of like an emergent protagonist in an ensemble cast. And I like how John Cusack just through like purely through his actions like rises as the protagonist of the film.
Yeah, it's I feel like it's kind of tricky when your cast is like this and like a couple of the characters are like much bigger name actors than the other. It's like you see like they introduced John Cusack in this movie and it's like obviously he's the protagonist, like Ray Liotta comes along and it's like obviously he's important, like these are the biggest actors in the movie. But I agree with you, like from a storytelling perspective they don't put too much emphasis on John Cusack early on, and like he is sort of allowed to be more of that emergent protagonist, even though you know who's going to be the protagonist. Yeah, I mean, otherwise, like it's always fun to, even though you have an idea of a couple of the characters who are going to be around for a long time, fun to guess like who's going to be the next killed. Like that's always the fun question, because then you can be like, oh well, that's who I thought the killer might be, but now they're dead, or are they? And they do kind of a couple of instances of like such and such character is not who they seem to be, or not who they
They do,
say.
yeah, they do enough clever misdirects throughout the movie to keep you on your toes a little bit. I like how with the Jake Busey character, for example, like, they make it seem like obviously, he's a convict, escaped, he's obviously the killer. And then we happen on him with a bat shoved down his throat, you know.
Which, yeah, in an amazing practical, which I saw was done by none other than Greg Nicotero, which is cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I caught his name in the
I didn't
credits.
notice that.
To be fair, I don't know if the bat was specifically him, but like the puppetry and any of the effects were credited to Greg Nicotero. And I mean, assumedly, it looks like his work, like it's excellent.
Yeah.
So it's just like
Well,
once again, like you're watching a horror movie from like the '90s up, like, and the effects are incredible. There's his name again. Yeah, it's amazing. I
yeah.
fucking love Greg Nicotero, man.
Well, I mean, Jake Busey is like a hugely like signposted red herring. It's
Yeah.
like they do kind of the setup. It's like right around the time that the actress gets murdered is also when he escapes. So everybody at the motel, of course, thinks that he's the killer.
But it is sort of an ironic
He's a
thing.
killer.
Yeah, like they do at the very beginning of the movie, they show like they show that photograph of like Malcolm Rivers or Pruitt Taylor Vince. And like and he's got such a distinct face and it's hard to forget. So like we see that like he is some sort of entity in this and he's the
Yeah,
killer that they're interviewing. So it must not be Busey alone. He must be involved in some capacity, which I like.
yeah, we haven't mentioned that at all, but there is kind of a sort of like seemingly unconnected or like disconnected like side plot that of course becomes more important later, but the movie starts with, before we're introduced to any of these characters, sort of over the opening credits we see Alfred Molina like sitting at a desk, and he's like obviously some sort of doctor or something. He's listening to like interview tapes and he's looking at newspaper clippings, and it's sort of unveiling this story of like some psycho killer, qu'est-ce que c'est, who killed a bunch of people, and he had split personalities, and he's convicted and he's due to be executed. They set that up and then we get into meeting all of the characters. And so there are a couple of times where they'll like cut to basically the only other location in the movie, pretty much outside of like the motel, is like in a police station or courthouse or something in like the middle of the night, where they've called up this judge to try to get him to give Malcolm Rivers a stay of execution. But Malcolm Rivers is supposed to be there, but ooh, he's late. Why is he late? So it kind of sets up as like, oh, maybe his transport crashed or something and he escaped, and so now he's the one who's at the motel like stalking and killing these people. Yeah, that's supposed to be like I guess one of the big questions once they find Jake Busey uh killed with a baseball bat shoved down his throat. Well, the baseball bat that John Hawkes, Larry, had been carrying around the whole time. So then that sort of like makes everybody at the motel think, "Oh, you're the killer. He's got your baseball bat shoved down his throat. So you must be the guy." So they tie him up.
Well, yeah, again, like it does a really clever job, kind of transferring the red herring suspect from one to the other. And they make this move a few times in the movie, and it always works for me, like it's always fun, and I think it gives the movie enough narrative drive to be like, oh yeah, we'll focus on what if they were the killer,
Right. Well, see, and then by the time we're this far in the movie, I had already called what the actual twist was, so I was kind of just along for the ride. I'm like, yeah, no, this is all misdirection.
Ditto that. However, the ride is fun, so I personally didn't
Yeah,
mind. And if anything, too, like
fun.
I think I mentioned it a million times, I'll mention it again, like on this podcast. I am always happy to guess the twist ahead of time, as long as it's well enough thought out and set up throughout the story, and it is concluded in a fun way.
Well,
Deductive reasoning stories need to have deduction in it. Unlike most Sherlock Holmes stuff, where Sherlock Holmes is always out here quoting about deduction, but then solves the mystery off screen, especially in the books.
I don't know if I can fully walk with you on this one because, and Ben can vouch for this, the way I pitched it was like, I was like, oh no, I just thought of the stupidest twist that they could have for this movie. And I was like, I have to vocalize this.
Yeah, you guessed the first twist. There was a second twist, in fairness, and the second twist is very stupid, but it did catch me by surprise, I will say.
Okay. All right, my turn. So for me, it was short 3 parts. First part was John Cusack is I think he's taking photos of one of the crime scenes or something. He's just sort of entered like a police mode.
He's an ex-cop. We haven't
Yeah,
established that.
he
He's
was
an
an
ex-cop.
ex-cop. Yeah, and he's just sort of re-fulfilled that role. And he says there were periods in my life where I was blacking out, and I was like, oh, Fight Club, like he must be the murderer. And then I thought about it for a second longer, and I said, no, wait, that's too easy. That's a red herring. Oh no, what if they're all the killer and they're all like aspects of his identity? Because like they were, like French academia, like playing off of each other as different psychoses of the mind. Like from the beginning, like the way that like certain archetypes hate the other archetypes, it's very like DID. And they say it at the beginning. They literally say like multiple personalities at the beginning of the film.
The movie's called Identity.
John
Yeah.
Cusack is reading Sartre
You're right.
in his car on being and,
Yeah.
Right.
personhood
Exactly.
or
Yeah.
whatever.
God, that's so heavy-handed. And I was like, oh, I don't know about that. Like, that's really stupid. And then one of my buddy Tyler, he said, nah, man, it's the kid. As a joke. And and we continue to watch the movie. And what I will say is my concern about it being the really dumb thing over the course of the film became joy. And I actually came around on it and began to really like that was actually the thing. But when I first thought about it, I was like, oh, this is so stupid. They're going to do It's All a Dream. And none of this will have meant anything because they're all like characters in his head. And by the end of the film, I think they earn it. And I'll tell you why. the thing that is often annoying about the "it's all a dream" trope is that the dream has no meaning, right? But here, the dream is very important. Like it is crucial to the story, and it has, like deep meaning to the characters and the reality involved. So I liked it. I gotta say, it's still dumb as rocks, but
Well,
like
and
it's fun.
I almost would argue that, like, having it be in his head kind of gives leeway to some of the dumber aspects of this movie. Like, we have some elements of, like, when they cut to wide shots of the motel, you get some really bad CG, for example, and you get, again, the characters are a bit caricature-y, they're very broad. And I think if that's someone's imagination in their head, like, I give way more of a pass to that because, like, it's someone's imagination. It's not going for pure realism, right? Like, the idea
Yeah.
that it's a sort of purgatory of the mind where it's always raining and you can't escape, like, that's cool
Well,
for,
because it's
something in your head.
because it's raining in the real world, so he's translating that into his brain. So the the third act twist, as we've sort of unfolded, is that yeah, all of this stuff at the motel, all of these characters are aspects of Pruitt Taylor Vince's, yeah, all of his different personalities. And so the whole drama at the motel is taking place inside his head. And where it gets stupider is that this is all sort of a last ditch gambit from Alfred Molina, who's his doctor, to get the judge to grant a stay of execution, because his argument is that only one of these personalities is a killer, so you can't execute somebody for something that they have no knowledge or memory of them doing. So he's basically somehow initiated in Malcolm Rivers' head this thing where all of the personalities have to get together and figure out who the killer is, which personality is the killer, to stop them and get rid of the killer. So the one who killed all these people is dead, and so they can't execute Malcolm Rivers
Well,
anymore.
and here's what else is fun about this, right? I was talking
It's
about like
so
how the
headass,
dream has
dude.
meaning. Suddenly, all of these characters that we've like, hopefully become attached to over the course of the film, now all of their lives are at risk because the host's life is at risk. So it adds this new ticking clock to the mix that not only is there a killer on the loose in their realm, in their reality, like also the reality itself is going to be destroyed, potentially. Also, it has briefly, editor's note on that. Briefly, it has like a pro rehabilitation message, and I thought that was kind of dope.
I
But
gotta say, I love the scene of self-discovery of that twist
it's
where they're
fun.
in maybe the courthouse or whatever, where it has John Cusack, in there with all of the people, and they're kind of revealing to him that his identity is actually Pruitt Taylor Vince. And they bring out the mirror and he looks at it and it's actually Pruitt Taylor Vince. I thought that was really
What did
clever.
you do to my
And
face?
I think Pruitt Taylor Vince gives an incredible performance in this. Like, he has these constantly like shifty eyes where they're constantly moving side to side, and it's like super unnerving to me. Like,
It really
it's
feels like there
really
is like a
uncomfortable.
full host of characters having a dialogue up there. Like, yeah, with just like that the quick like shifting pupils. Like it, yeah, you buy it. Like at least I do. And for a twist that absurd, you need to.
It's such a simple thing, but like you completely buy it just in like such a subtle movement of the eyes that he's not there, right?
Right.
And to go back to what you were saying, Cleve, about how like now you're all of a sudden like concerned for the existence of all of these characters, because if, Malcolm Rivers dies, then they obviously all die. I think they do a really nice job of sort of creating those stakes with the little bit of character development we get with Amanda Peet in her conversation with John Hawkes, where they finally start to like, oh yeah, now they start to understand each other, because it turns out they're both from like the same county in Florida, like little bumfuck nowhere. And she's like trying, the reason she's like stolen all of this money is because she's trying to go home to Florida, and she's bought like a small like orange orchard, and so she's gonna go back and she's gonna grow oranges. And that's sort of like this like idealized, this paradise that's just out of reach, that if she doesn't get out of here, she's not going to be able to go home and grow oranges like she wants.
She
So
wants a
that's kind of like
simple
the
life.
future.
She doesn't want to hurt anybody.
That's the future that's at stake if Pruitt Taylor Vance is executed, basically. Because we don't know anything about him necessarily as a person, but we know we've gotten to know all of these personalities that exist within him. And so that's the future of like the Orange Grove is what's at stake at the end.
Yeah, well, I get the impression that like there really isn't a Malcolm Rivers. Like he's just all of those people. He's been fractured into all of them. The original is
Yeah, sure.
yeah. Like that's the impression I get, is that there isn't like there are dominant personalities, but like the body is many. I like that. I think that works nicely for the film. And yeah, up through this point, I'm thinking like dope. We've got it. We've got a. I complained about it a little bit on Split, but like, I don't. I'm not trying to moralize it. I don't think it's really like great to like ascribe like moralization to films like that. But like, it does kind of bum me personally out when like, like there's so many of these movies that are like, oh, multiple personality monster, and it's like I just want to see like someone with multiple personalities who's just like trying to live their
Well,
fucking
the
life,
problem
like.
the problem with Split and some of those other types of movies, like what we discussed when we reviewed it, is
Yeah.
like there is something that's kind of crass about the idea of like mental illness as a superpower. That like his multiple personalities like give him the power to like climb walls and like bend steel bars and shit. Like
Annoying, yeah.
there's a kind of like, it's a movie, and again, like I'm not gonna moralize over it, like it's not like a huge deal, but it has a kind of vulgarity to it that like it's not great. And I think that for the most part this movie avoids that kind of thing. It doesn't feel like it's trying to say anything about multiple personality disorder,
Yeah.
or whatever. Like it's just kind of it's like it's a framing narrative for an Agatha Christie story.
Yeah.
It's a third act plot twist.
Yeah, I was excited because like so often with these movies, like the evil killer, uses like mental illness as an escape to get off, to not be murdered by the justice system, and like here they've flipped it to what I believe to be the proper reality, which is like, yes, get everyone mental help, like like rehabilitate people. Don't don't punishment does nothing. I really liked that, and that like Alfred Molina was like trying to do what I also believe to be the right thing, and I think that was cool and fun, and he pays for it.
Well, that's the thing. It works until it very much doesn't, right?
Again, it's a late '90s, early aughts film. They got to have a twist on the twist. The end has to have that final spin, and I understand that. Like it's a product of the time, and also it's kind of fun. Like, and so I don't hate this either. To spoil
It's
the
kind of
ending.
fun, and I wish that I had vocalized this, because I did call it to myself partway through, but didn't say it out loud because I'm like, nah, that's too dumb.
But
But
they do a fun job of flagging it, where like they say like, yeah, the kid never talks. He's been like this ever since the trauma of it, and it's like, Oh yeah, like he's if anyone really is the Malcolm Rivers, it's the
Right.
kid who's just always been stuck there ever since he's been
Right.
fractured. He doesn't have a voice of his own anymore.
All that's left is bloodthirst.
See, the way I read that is it being 2003 and very dated. It was like the autism passed down from his father.
It's a stepfather,
It's his
though.
stepdad though.
True,
They got
it
very
is a
clear.
It's a
stepfather.
stepfather.
That's a
And
Yeah.
good point.
I think John C. McGinley does talk about how the kid has some kind of trauma from like his real father like leaving them, like walking out on them
Mhm.
or something,
Yeah.
and that's why he doesn't really talk much. So the kid is always kind of like in the background,
Which
you
means that
know?
Alfred Molina wouldn't know that he existed. And I think that's fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, because we see that he's got, like, the journal that has, like, all of the different handwritings and, like, all that shit. So, like, Alfred Molina, like, knows all of these personalities, but, yeah, probably doesn't know about the kid because the kid doesn't he never, like, comes forward, I guess, except to kill, I suppose. I will say, okay, I wanna touch on probably my least favorite, like, total dumb guy detail is, the names
Oh,
of
it's so
characters. The
stupid.
names of the characters, because this is when they sort of the way they sort of start to figure out that, like, they talk to each other like, "Oh, yeah, maybe it's just like in, and then there were none," where, like, the characters are connected in some way, but they don't know how. And then basically they discover, because like Amanda Pete's like, it's my birthday next week, and I just want to get out of here and go home and do my oranges or whatever. And then John Hawkes is like, it's your birthday next week? Mine too. And she's like, yeah, what day? And he's like, the 10th. She's like, wait, me too. And then somebody else in the room is like, wait, me too. And then the camera pans over and it's like, me too. Me too. And then we discover that everybody has the same birthday. And that's sort of like what kicks off the reveal that this is all happening in Pruitt Taylor Vince's head. But where they take it from there is when they realize they like go through all of the driver's licenses and they realize like all of the characters' names, and they're all named after states. Like they here I'll read all of them. They have them written in the IMDb trivia, because one of these is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard and made me incredibly angry. Um, so the complete names of the characters is John Cusack is Ed Dakota. Ray Liotta is
North Dakota
Samuel.
and Ed Dakota.
Yeah, North Dakota and Ed Dakota. Ray Liotta is Samuel Rhodes, like Rhode Island. Amanda Pete is Paris, Nevada, and they're in Nevada too. You've got the York family, George York, Alice York, and Timmy York, the kid. You've got Larry Washington. You've got Caroline Suzanne, which I guess is supposed to be like Carolina. I don't know why
Yeah.
they
Bit of
whatever.
a stretch,
Uh,
but all right.
Virginia Ginny Easiana and her husband Lou Easiana. And then Robert Maine. The Louisiana one made me so fucking furious because
It's like
all of the rest of the ones, it's just like a part of a state. It's just part of a state. Like it's like Alice York or Ed Dakota, but they had to name one character Louisiana.
oh, I love it. I love it so much. It's Bart calling Mo, like
Yes,
Amanda hug and
yes.
kiss, like fucking stupid. Like it's so dumb.
God damn, it's so fucking stupid. That shit made me so fucking angry. The
Oh man,
other
it made me
dumb
I love it.
twists, the other dumb twists, whatever, they're kind of
Hmm.
fun. But Louisiana made my blood boil because that's just that's just lazy writing, dog. That's
There's
just
a
lazy
sense of
writing.
whimsy, Peace. Where's your love?
It's
Where's your
not
love
whi-
of
it's not whimsical. It's not whimsical. It's lazy. There's a difference.
oh,
Uh, um I like, I really don't, maybe I just missed it, but I also really don't know why all of the characters have the names of different states. Were those the states where what's his face like committed the crimes, like his murders? They said he only killed 6 people, so there were 10. Like, I don't know. It's
Well, to me,
weird,
it was
but
like, oh, we're. It was just the realization. It just helped further that they weren't real, right? Like these aren't real people's names. So clearly, we're not real. Like, it was like it's the final like piece of evidence to the fact that like they all share the same birthday. That's an astronomical odd, but oh yeah, we're characters. We were like invented in someone's head. We're not like actual people.
yeah,
Um, and so I think that's the
yeah.
purpose of that revelation, where it's like why it doesn't justify Louisiana, but like it does, like yeah, they're
Well, yeah,
yeah.
because they killed him off earlier, so
Mhm.
because they couldn't have him be alive in that scene for them to be like Louisiana, and for him to be like, "Whoa, that's my name! I never realized."
They melted like the Nazis in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like if I found out my name was Louisiana, I would just on the spot.
Well, you're named after a city in Ohio.
I, that's true. No, no,
Just
yeah,
zap out of
I do have a fake
existence.
name. It's true. It
All
is true.
names are fake.
Damn,
So
words aren't
true.
real. Yeah.
Anyway, so we didn't, they do a reveal that Ray Liotta is obviously not a cop. Like you already talked about, like we see the bloody hole. He was a convict being transported alongside Jake Busey, and he like hit a shiv in his shoe and stabbed it through the seat and killed the cop driving, and then took his clothes, so on and so forth. But so like when they realize, after John Cusack is like brought out into the real world, and Alfred Molina tells him, is like, you have to go in and you have to stop the killer, otherwise you're all gonna be dead. And so they go back, he goes back into the Mind Palace, the Mind Motel, and so then it's like, okay, well, Ray Liotta's the killer. So they used to hunt Ray Liotta down, and they shoot each other a few times, and they both sort of die together, but it allows Amanda Peet to escape off on her own. She's the last one remaining, but she gets to go have her happy ending in bumfuck nowhere, Florida. And now that that dastardly old killer Ray Liotta is dead, Malcolm Rivers gets the stay of execution, and he gets to go and spend the rest of his life in an insane asylum, instead of being put to death. But then, wait. We see Amanda Peet. She's got her orange orchard, and she's tilling in the dirt, and she finds a motel key. We didn't really mention that, but with every body, there's like one of the room keys like counting down from 10.
Another thing that I thought was dumb, but I liked a lot.
Yeah, it's hokey. Well, that's sort of where they start bringing in like the supernatural elements of it too, because like the keys will just be like on people. It's like, what? How did that happen? But so she's tilling in the dirt, and she hits something with her little rake, and brush the dirt off of it, and it's the room key, and it's number 1. And she looks up, and the kid is there. The kid who we thought died in a big old car explosion, but it turns out actually did not die in the car explosion. And so and then it's revealed, yep, he's the killer, and he kills Amanda Peet. And then we see in the real world with Malcolm Rivers being transported, and the kid takes over, and he kills Alfred Molina with his handcuffs.
Similarly to how Ray Liotta's character kills the cop through the back seat.
Yeah,
He doesn't do it with a knife, but like it's sort of the same principle. And I love it because that is on the brain, like because we don't see that much earlier. And so we see Ray Liotta kill the guy from the back seat, and then in this later scene, we're aware that the evil child is taking over in his mind, but Melina isn't, and he turns around and he's the one who opens the door to talk to him because he's trusting of him and he's trusting of his work that he's done to help him. And like I love the irony there, like, and it's just like, no, what are you doing? You know, like it's fun, and then he strangles him.
He didn't know about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a shame he pays for it, like, because again, not to
Well, yeah,
ascribe
I
my
mean,
own
it's
morals to it.
Yeah.
Like he was right, he was doing the right thing, but
So
damn,
much for
yeah,
this anti-death penalty message.
yeah, there it
yeah.
goes.
I mean,
Bye bye.
it's a kind of, it's a suitably bleak ending. Amanda Peet dies. She doesn't get her happy ending in her Orange Grove, and yeah, Alfred Molina dies, and
You can't trust those crazies after all. Yep, put him in
and
jail. Damn.
his plan like extra backfired because he succeeded in getting rid of all of the personalities, but in so doing, the only one that's left is
Is
the
the evil
killer.
one. Yeah.
So the evil personality is all that remains in the brain of Malcolm Rivers. So yeah, pretty nihilistic ending. But I think some of the darkness of it is lessened by how many stupid ass twists it took us to get there. It ends up just being goofy. That's okay.
Yeah, it is.
Last little tidbit, and then unless you guys have anything else we can rate. The score in this was done by Alan Silvestri, but
That's
I
right.
was reading I was reading that originally there was an Angelo Badalamenti score. And I'm not sure why, but they ended up having to, maybe he didn't finish it or whatever. There might have been contract stuff, but they ended up having to replace it. They had to scrap it, and Alan Silvestri came in and did the score instead. And
Downgrade.
now I'm just like,
Downgrade.
I huge
Silvestri
downgrade.
is a hack compared to Baldalamenti, I gotta say.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think Silvestri's a hack, but I certainly prefer Badalamenti. And now I'm like imagining what this movie would be with like a moody Badalamenti score, like a Mulholland
Yeah,
Drive style score.
yeah, that would
Cooler
like
and
probably put
better.
the star rating up, but yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, Silvestri's more of like a Hollywood guy, like
Yeah, he did all the
Avengers.
Avengers scores, the everyone's favorite, and the Forrest Gump
Yeah.
score, the very memorable Forrest Gump score that everyone remembers.
I remember the
I
Forrest Gump score. I don't even like
Well,
that
say
movie.
of all those Marvel movies, I think the Avengers theme is like probably the most
I hate the Avengers theme, but I don't know if that's
heard it too many
necessarily its
times.
fault. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think it
it's
is.
oversaturated the culture.
Yeah.
I can't stand that shit. But anywho, are y'all ready to rate this, or do y'all have anything else you want to hit?
yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's it.
I think we hit all the bases.
Solid 3.5 for me. Like not an incredible movie, pretty stupid, but nice ensemble cast. I like most everybody's performance. It's a fun, kind of twisty, turny little murder mystery. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, this is I mentioned it before, but this is like a textbook airplane movie watch. Stakes aren't too high, and it keeps a consistent clip of fun, twisty turniness to keep you engaged. Um, with that being said, it doesn't blow my mind by any means. This to me is like a textbook 3 out of 5. It's fun, but it is what it is. It's not mind blowing by any means.
I liked it. It brought me good joy. I'm gonna give it a 4. I think it was a great deal of fun. Maybe that's some bias to the fact that when I went to pull this movie up, I saw it was made in '03, and I rolled my eyes with a lot of concerns and was pretty pleasantly surprised. To me, it was dated in ways I largely appreciated and enjoyed. Not necessarily for the sake of, in many circumstances, for the sake of quality, like I said, with the sets and the lighting, but and also for the sake of just plain fun, and even the goofy stuff was nice for me. Maybe I'm just blinded by nostalgia. I don't
Honestly,
know.
honestly, my big takeaway from this is I would like to see John Cusack in more movies. What happened to him?
Yeah.
What is he doing? I feel like I haven't seen him in anything in like a long time.
Did he just retire?
Yeah,
Or
he's a big online progressive. I saw him be
Yeah,
a
no,
big Bernie supporter back in 2016 and
oh yeah,
2020,
no, he's
but,
definitely still acting, but
yeah, he's
he's
doing
acting
things,
in a
but
lot of he's acting in a lot of shit that has like an average rating on IMDb of between 2.8 and like 5.8. A lot of shit that I've never fucking heard of.
yeah,
Hot Tub Time Machine 2, about 10 years ago, believe it or
I mean,
not.
he was in
Um,
well, I guess it was almost it was over 10 years ago, in fairness, but
that's
he
for
was
the
in,
stars.
Cronenberg's Map to the Stars, which,
That's for the
is an
stars.
excellent movie. Um,
11 years ago. That is the last thing he was in that I have even heard of. Um, and
he did,
before that,
he
what's
did,
the last thing I
Spike
even
Lee's Chirac in 2015, which was also, in fairness, 10 years ago,
he
but,
did? I never saw that. Was that any good?
I never saw it either. Honestly, I
Okay.
should watch it because I liked, Da 5 Bloods from a few years back.
Yo,
good movie.
I did not know this, but John Cusack plays Richard Nixon in The Butler, in Lee Daniels' The Butler.
That's wild.
I would love
God,
I I've heard that movie stinks, but I kind of would love to see John
God,
Cusack play Richard Nixon.
yeah,
I gotta know
absolutely.
what I gotta know what Cusack Nixon looks like. Anyway, Identity will that gets an average of 3.5 out of 5. And you know what? Another special kudos to Zach for always keeping us on our toes with these picks. Like this is the kind of thing like I probably never would have seen otherwise.
I'm glad I
And
did.
no, me too. Like even though it's not a great movie, I definitely feel enriched for the experience.
Yeah.
As fucking stupid as that twist was. So thank you, Zach. Um, Next week, it's Ben's pick, and Ben's got
Yes.
a real special pick for us.
Yeah,
Um,
so, my brother, my little brother Joseph, actually asked to be on an episode of the podcast, and he specifically requested the movie that we're gonna cover next week. He's never seen it before, so I don't know if he
oh,
completely knows
really?
what he's getting into. But it should be fun. We're gonna be covering Shinya Tsukamoto's Tetsuo the Iron Man. An
Honestly,
excellent,
long,
excellent film.
long overdue.
Yeah,
Long
it's
overdue.
well timed.
I did not realize that Joseph hadn't seen this before. That's pretty crazy. I'm looking forward
Yeah,
to
good.
seeing
We can get your baby brother on as baby for this. This will
Yeah,
be
yeah.
excellent.
I'll be very curious to hear how he even heard of this movie. Because it is a
Oh,
pretty weird one.
it is, but it's known. Like
Yeah,
True.
it's in the canon of like weirdo cinema for sure. Um, but I'm excited. I haven't seen Tetsuo since college. Probably I've never seen either of the sequels, so I'm excited to get a chance to rewatch this. So yeah, come join us for some real freaky machine pervert shit next week
yeah.
when we cover Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Let's go.
Until then, if you like the show and you like these machine perverts, then leave us a 5-star rating and a review wherever you're listening to this. Like, subscribe, share an episode. Honestly, leaving us those star ratings is the best way to help the show grow. So it takes like 30 seconds. So if you haven't done it, do it, please. You can also, if you want to go the extra mile, head over to patreon.com/podpeoplepod. You can get all kinds of stuff for the different tiers. You get access to early episodes. You can get access to our Discord. Every tier gets the video episodes, our raw, unedited video of every episode. And at the top tier, the honorary Podboy tier, you get to choose movies for us to talk about with no input from us whatsoever. Like what happened with this episode. So shout out, of course, to our honorary pod boys, Sam, Zach, Mike, and Mitchell, and of course, special shout out this week once again to Zach, who picked Identity for us to talk about. Last but not least, you can follow us on Letterboxd, Pod People Podcast, where you'll find a list of all the films we've talked about on the show with our average ratings and links to those reviews. Honestly, for my recommendation this week, I mentioned it earlier in the show, but I'm going to recommend the Belko Experiment. It's kind of similar to that. I mean, similar premise in that, like, it's a single location where way more than 10 people are sort of trapped. And the premise is that they all work in this big office building, and one day they get locked down, and a voice on the intercom tells them, like, you have such and such amount of time to kill this many of your colleagues, otherwise we're going to detonate bombs in your head. So it's very, very violent, very gory, but pretty entertaining, and John C. McGinley's in it, so that's the connection to Identity.
Hell yeah.
I think it's on
Um,
Tubi.
okay, so my recommendation for this week is a movie we watched last night during movie night. It's the new film by Beat Takashi, uh, Japanese Yakuza filmmaker legend. He made a new movie called Broken Rage that was kind of unceremoniously dumped onto Amazon a couple weeks ago, but it's really fantastic. Um, what do you think, T? Should I spoil the conceit? I feel like it's
Yeah,
fun to know
it's a
either
selling
way.
point. It's a
Yeah.
selling point, I think.
So essentially, it's a short movie. It's only like 60 some minutes long, but essentially it tells this Yakuza tale. But the formal twist is it tells it twice. The first time it tells it is a straight sort of crime thriller drama about this aging hitman who gets caught by the police and has to double cross his team. The second time it tells it is as a slapstick comedy. So it goes very hard into the silliness of it all. And honestly, it works. It's super
It's
fun.
extremely funny. It's
Yeah.
extremely funny.
You get to see a lot of old man falling down in it. And yeah, it's a blast. It's definitely worth checking out. Again, it's only like a little over an hour long. And it's on Amazon. So yeah,
The
worth watching. Broken Rage.
the second half, like the slapstick part, is Monty Python-esque. And
Yeah,
it's
it reminds me a little bit of Yakuza side stories in how silly it gets.
Okay.
like the video games. Yeah, I've never played any of
Yeah.
those, but
Awesome.
I know they're silly.
With that.
Cleve, what you got for us
Yeah,
this week?
my recommendation has nothing to do with the movie. It's a
Okay.
usual Cleve weird out of pocket recommendation. I'm gonna recommend the 10-year-old game Far Cry 5. I've been playing a lot of it again. I picked it up and it's still as great as I remember it. It's a Far Cry game. It does all the Far Cry game things. But I think the story is still great and preemptive even and heavy-handed for sure, but definitely preemptive. And that soundtrack is so sick. It's still I think one of my favorite like video game soundtracks ever. Like just I think they did a great job of capturing like Montana Americana and just having all of the cult choir like the Christo fascist choir stuff is so sick, and just having it all uh made into ambient like stretched music by the artist Hammock, like so when you're out and about you just sort of hear them carried on the wind is sick. Like yeah, beautiful game, very fun to play.
You heard it here first, folks. Cleveland recommends Christo fascist choir music.
I do.
Um,
It's so sick, dude.
dangerous, and I don't think you should be allowed to say those kinds of things on a good socialist podcast like this one.
I know.
But anyway, thank you folks for listening, and until next time, stay dry out there, because it's fucking raining.